Welcome to your activation for this full moon, indeed, this super full moon in Taurus, happening direct on November 5th at 5:19 a.m. Pacific time. So go ahead and look at your chart. Where does Taurus land in your chart? And look at that degree point. It's at 13 degrees, 22 minutes. Everybody has that degree point in their chart, even if there isn't anything else there. It occupies a house in your chart. And that's the house that's getting lit up right now from the opposite. The sun is in Scorpio, opposite Taurus. So we're working the Scorpio Taurus axes, this axes of the depth, and then integrating them into our embodiment. That is what we are here to do. And we're going to weave in the I Ching and Gate 2 and take a look at what the message is. What is the sun illuminating for us in this time? Welcome to my channel. My name is Kenlin, and I love to weave astrology, gene keys, I Ching with our current situation to help us understand how do we live. We are undergoing a massive transformation, bigger than all of us. It's a collective transformation of humanity, and we are individually going through our own reinventions, our own crucibles to transform ourselves, because it is through the individual that the collective changes. And so I like to call us midwives or alchemists or edge walkers or high priestesses, whatever it is that's between the end of the end and the beginning of the beginning. And we have to have faith in this position because these transits are long. And indeed, as human design says, we're stepping into a mutation. Our bodies, our biology is changing, and we're entering into the age of empowerment. And that is going to take us for the next 400 years. So we have to play the long game in our lives and in our consciousness. And yet, you and I were born right now to do this very work of transformation. And I like to put it in that context because otherwise we can sink below and we can get into the shadow zone. And life from the shadow zone looks pretty bleak. So I like to directly confront that which is happening in our world and also put a context around it that's empowering. So you're never going to hear me shrink from stuff that's happening in politics, because politics, after all, is the collective. It's what's happening outside of us in the collective, which is inside of us. Inside is outside, outside is inside. So I won't shrink from that, but I also won't give it the power that someone would give it from a shadow perspective. So let's talk for a minute about the full moon and where the sun is, and the grand water trine that I spoke about a couple of weeks ago. And then we'll also weave in, I think the deeper, more important message for this full moon is the message of Gene Key 2, the receptive, the divine feminine, the feminine flow. So it's interesting that we are in experience of water while we have a solid earth-based full moon that is ruled by Venus, the goddess herself. So that for me means that it's an integration, that we're going to be able to handle it, that it's going to be able to stabilize us and put us actually indeed on the course that we are individually supposed to be on, that our internal natural compass takes us. And so I believe that this will be a harmonizing full moon. If you have eyes to see and ears to hear, let it harmonize the discordant information or beliefs or emotions that are inside you. Come to stability and use it as a time to shore up your spiritual foundations and your emotional foundations, your mental health foundations, and also your physical ones, particularly around money and materiality, because Taurus is concerned with our embodiment, our actual bodies. How are we doing? How are we caring for ourselves, as well as our finances, our money, our material resources? That's a very Venusian theme, and she is exalted in this sign of Taurus. She's also at the last degree of Libra, so she's really happy there. So we've got some good Venus energy supporting us as we step into a new way of being. So what's being integrated could be, if we look at the Scorpio sun, Scorpio goes to the depths. Scorpio is not afraid of the depths. Scorpio is not afraid to face fears, to face lies and bring them to the truth, to face toxicity and alchemize it. Scorpio is a badass, and that's where the sun sits. and it's shining its full light on the opposite. So what does that mean? Moving from the depths, from the underneath, from below the surface, bringing it into the light. And then Taurus allows us to integrate it, to make sense of it, to harmonize it, to take things that are in the paradox of life, this and that, and harmonize it so that we have a compass, a way forward, so that internally we are integrated, not scattered. We are oriented, as Gene Key 2 says, not dislocated. So you can see that the revelations on the world scene are getting more and more dramatic, more like heinous in so many ways. And not everybody is there yet with seeing these truths. We're at the beginning of the beginning and the end of the end. So give us some time where humanity, because this Gene Key is saying we're moving toward unity. But before we get there, we have a big mess to clean up, which is our perceptions, which is the things that have been hidden from us. It's the ways that we tell ourselves lies. And those lies are being revealed. And we can see inside the collective, like, for example, we see that Prince Andrew was stripped of his royal privileges and his royal title because of the charges and allegations of child sex trafficking. And they're being believed by the monarchy. And that is a wonderful thing. And that's going to keep happening to players inside the United States, including our president. There is a reckoning that's coming because of the lies that this person has told. And also this grab for power is opposite what Pluto in Aquarius wants to bring us. So it all makes sense when we look at it in the, I keep doing this, in context of astrology. And by the way, my cycles and opportunity, looking at the historical astrological cycles and what that means for you and how do you move through it, is now available. Thank the goddess. I re-recorded it, made it better, and now it's being released. And I'm going to also release 2 meditations along with it. And that came out of really hearing the experience of other people not being able to sleep at night with the news. There's a government shutdown in the United States, and that is really disconcerting in winter where people may not be fed. Lots of politicking going on. There's a siphoning off of money in our country toward building stupid things like a new White House or a jet plane. So we're really seeing that there's massive, massive pressure that's being applied. And the way that I look at it is that that pressure is going to catalyze its equal and opposite. And I talk about that inside of cycles and opportunities. And really, more importantly, okay, so we have that great context and that is helpful. But then what is your particular role to play? And Gene Key 2, where the sun is lighting up the moon, lighting up our unconscious, lighting up the feminine, the moon is the receiver, is asking us to trust the feminine pulse of life. In human design, they call it the magnetic monopole, the mover, the real mover. We think we're the movers. We think we're driving the car, but there's a real mover in here, and it is not our minds. And so this transmission is to speak to that in you that is below your mind, in your embodiment. All right, so let's get into this gate 2 of the I Ching, this book of changes, the oracle that over 1,000 years ago was relied upon for decision making, that got integrated into human design, into the gene keys. And now we understand it as having 3 frequencies. And if you're a Taurus sun at 13 degrees to 18 degrees, this is your life work. And well, the full moon and your natal sun are having a conversation right now. So something big is getting lit up or coming to fruition in your life. So just look for where Taurus is in your chart. And if you're sun, moon, or rising, you've got some auspicious moments that you might want to get ahead of, that you might want to get aligned with. And so Gene Key 2, I'm like consulting my Gene Key book. It's got lots of writing in it as I used to teach the Gene Keys, but now we're going to integrate them. So the shadow is the shadow of dislocation. This shadow could be a collapsed feminine where she feels isolated and alone and not feeling the feminine force of life, the pulse of life. It's where she could feel lost and purposeless and collapsed around the news of the day, or she could feel regimented and rigid and rule-oriented, which is definitely not her energy. She is water. This is the ring of water. Gene Key 1 and Gene Key 8 represents the codon ring of water. So here we are in the Wei Wu Wei. the action without action, the flow. And we have a grand water trine that's going to take us into December. I did a video on that already, but just as a reminder, we have Jupiter in Cancer, we have Saturn in Pisces, now we have Neptune in Pisces. And then that other piece of the triangle, that trine piece, well, they're trining each other. And then we have that other piece in Scorpio. And that's where the sun, the moon, Venus, Mars, and Mercury 3 times are passing through this ground water trine, creating this flow, this sense of wei wu wei, of action without action. You are being taken along this journey. And your job is hope and trust. It's the surrender. It's the highest form of movement through, because it requires a lot of faith and a lot of courage. And so if you're listening to this transmission will activate that in you. And so we're going to focus on the gift frequency, because in 2027, the gene keys in human design say that we are moving out of the shadow and into the gift. The gift isn't enlightened. It's not fully self-realized. That's the city, or the divine essence frequency. And in Gene Key 2, that is unify. And I think that that's really important, because we are in this mutation, we are becoming someone with a new biology that could actually perceive and be aware of unity consciousness. Now, that may take us 400 years, and I talk about this in the Cycles and Opportunities Masterclass. However, we are seeing it here and now. We are being aware of it here and now in these teachings, in these living wisdom teachings. Now, a friend of mine, Dr. Prue Lee, who I follow on Substack, who is a political strategist, has started to talk about unity. And she said that she lost 2,000 people following her as soon as she started to talk about unity. Fascinating. And I think that the majority of people that left are feeling like that's too much of a premature conversation, that there's still a reckoning. But Dr. Prue Lee is not saying that we need to skip over all the heinous acts that are being done right now, perpetrated by this administration, and the spread of this fascism. She's not saying that. She's locating us to a deeper why, a deeper motivation, a deeper like drishti, a farther out drishti, third eye gaze, aim where we're going. But nevertheless, it must be part of this, because we're not going into this thing with a win-lose mentality. We cannot. that is over. We are in the world of omni win-win or omni lose-lose. That's the reality of it. We have nukes, people. And so it's a lose-lose game. We need a win-win game. And a win-win game is seeing through new eyes. And yeah, that's a 400-year transit. And we're starting now. So let's get into it. So I'm going to read you what Richard Rudd said about the gift of orientation. But wait, before that, I'm going to tell you about Gene Key 2. So Gene Key 2 is in the G center. And that is the heart center. That is the center of love and beauty and belonging. And it is the magnetic monopole. It is the position of that force, the wei wu wei force moving us and directing us. We think that we're in the driver's seat. We are not. That is the magnetic monopole in human design, the thing, the current of life, which we can call the feminine force of being. And Gene Key 2 is the receptive. It is the allowing. It is the receiving of the resources that are necessary to move forward. Now, there's a collapsed shadow to that, as we discussed, and then there is the light. And so let's move toward the light of that and open to the resources that we actually need, not that we think we need. We need to update our visions. So much of the divinations that I'm doing these days with my cards, my oracle cards, are inviting me to update my files. So I think that's part of this Taurus full moon, that we are coming to completion with the old version of not only how we've operated, but what we have wanted, because Taurus speaks to our material life. A lot of people now are saying things like, I really want simplicity. I really want self-reliance. That's why I'm an entrepreneur. I really like self-reliance. I want to be at the effect of my own actions. Like if I need to make more money, I do more things, or I offer more things. I don't want to be at the effect. of someone else telling me, well, we're going to close or we're going to downsize. So as we move into the age of empowerment, which is this 2027 mutation that I've been talking about, and maybe I'll just do a whole video on that to kind of lay it out. We are moving into self-reliance, self-sufficiency, trusting our inner authority, which then means that we've got to clean out the gunk inside, the fear, the chaos, the emotionally unprocessed stuff inside, the resentments, the anger. That stuff gets to get processed. It has to be processed in order for the clarity to feel your inner authority. Otherwise, you're just going to have to think it. And the mind works in polarity. So it's going to tell you to do this. And as soon as you start to do it, it's going to tell you to do that. It's maddening. So the only true authority is that which lives inside your body. And you need to clear out any of the obstacles which the full moon could light up for you that are challenging your inner authority. Because at the end of the day, it's that which you can trust. And we're moving into just the trust of that knowing beyond whatever we see out here, the trust of that knowing. Can you see now how we are going to bridge the gap between the end of the end and the beginning of the beginning? All right. So you might want to look at where this gene key 2, if it's activated, or you look on the sides when you get your chart run from human design, you can see in the design or in the personality if there is gene key 2 anywhere. And that will give you an even greater sense of if there is, what's being activated. For me, it's my North Node. The feminine is my North Node. It's my future destiny. What's my South Node? The masculine, of course. Like, what a crucible for me. So, yeah, no joke in this lifetime. So a couple more things to say before we move on to the Richard Rudd quote that I think is going to help us orient through this confusing time, especially in the United States. I don't know about other countries, but we are just in a crucible. So I'll say that this is the energy of aligning to your true purpose. So I'll say that this is the energy of aligning to your true purpose. We're being given this opportunity as we are closing out the old age to get clearer and in more communication, more communion with the codes that are ours to live and deliver in the world, to actualize in the world. And that's going to be part of the age of empowerment, just living the natural talent and genius of who you are. That's getting highlighted with Gene Key 2, because Gene Key 2 is that direction of purpose. It's the opening of your intuition. It is paying attention to universal signals for guidance and direction. It is amplifying a natural, life-giving expression through love and through beauty. That's really the core of who we are. And that's what Gene Key 2 says, this is your touchstone. So Richard Rudd says, and here's this quote, close your eyes and just take this in. The gift of orientation for this Gene Key 2 is so profound that it creates a Taurus field around you. So imagine stepping into this feminine current of life, this deep trust of life, this surrender of life. Life creates life. Life takes care of life. Life knows how to take care of life. Stepping into that field creates a field around you. That is what our trust does. We trust the suffering of others. We trust the suffering of another. We open our hearts to them without agenda, and they receive our trust at a cellular level. I'll read that again all the way through. The gift of orientation is so profound that it creates a torus around us, a field. This is what our trust does. We trust the suffering of another. We open our hearts to them without agenda, and they receive our trust at a cellular level. Wow. It makes me want to cry, because if you have ever been in that place where you, without agenda, have been held or held someone else, where you simply witnessed and you allowed to be whatever was there, no resistance to it, no fighting reality, no trying to change their mind, coach them, reframe them. or you being reframed. You are just simply allowed to be with that which was in that moment that will pass. Remember how that felt? It's magic. It's the Holy of Holies. It is a field. It is the field of unity. There is no resistance. Even that which is coming up is oneness. It's the awareness of the field of oneness. And that is a grace. That is a gift. When we receive that, when we give that, what an incredible grace. So perhaps today, as you listen to this, you work with what would it feel like to simply hold space for that which is? What would it look like to be in stillness, cutting down the noise that is cluttering my mind, that is making me psychotic, and allowing me to drop deeper into the feminine pulse of life, knowing that she has always, always gone in the direction of life, of beauty, of creation. Let's just take a breath into that and receive her teaching as our activation for this full moon. And let us stabilize in that. Taurus is stable. It's got its feet on the ground in Mother Earth. It is oriented. It is stable. It is calm. And what if we allowed that to move us to whatever it is that's next? What if this is the way to navigate all the external change, all the internal change of who are you becoming? Then you will have the time and the space to sense what it is that you are becoming. The mind is just going to repeat the past and overlay it to the future because it's safety for the mind. It's certain for the mind. But that is not where we're going. Life will continually show up short. We are going into something that none of us have ever seen before, not in this dimensional reality and not in this lifetime. So we have to trust and take action from there. So let's gather all the positive energy we have generated and taking these poles in the left and the right, uniting masculine and feminine, the fire of this Scorpio lighting up, the fire of this Scorpio sun lighting up the moon, lighting up our unconscious, lighting up our feminine, showing us the way through. Just gathering all of that positive energy that we have generated and let's beam it out. Let's surround our neighbors, our friends, our family, ourselves, the whole world, all beings, animals. Taking a deep breath into that. And let's say together, may all beings benefit from the merits of our efforts.